Blood Bowl. I've always admired this game from afar. The concept of fantasy football always appealed to me. Fantasy football. Get it? Get it? I don't. If you could tell me in the comments, that'd be great. So, I've always wanted to paint one of the sets, so I treated myself over Christmas to the human team and got cracking on assembling it, which was a super easy process. They're very well designed and went together quite easily, and I'm in love with how detailed they are. So I've got a really good feeling that these are going to turn out nicely. First things first is sanding the bases, so I go ahead and lay down some PVA glue before dipping it in sand. I did that to all the bases. The plan is to get an underlay of mud, and then at the end we're going to completely cover it in grass as the turf. And with that, it is ready to prime. And since it's still winter, I'm doing the odd hack of taking the airbrush matte grey, but not the matte grey I went to school with, primer, and just getting that on there with a brush. I was slopping on a bit too thick, but it stays wet for a while, so you can use that paint to redistribute across the other models. And it's not perfect, but we've got to make do in the winter because spraying can be quite difficult in the current British climate. And hey, they turned out pretty clean, but don't try this at home, kids. Or don't. I'm not your dad. Do what you want. And I cracked out the Corex white and gave everything a dry brush to really accent the highlighted areas and give it a bit of tone and definition. From there, it'll be ready to start painting. Starting with the Crusader Skin speed paint and applying that to all the flesh areas on the humans. I'm using the new brushes I got for Christmas, so they're quite fresh and I'm able to get into quite these small detailed areas quite easily, which is a very good omen. And once I've done that to every single one of the 12 models, I cracked out the Beowulf Blue and started applying that to the armour. I was loosely using some references from the Games Workshop website while taking some creative liberties. But once again, working for every single model, getting that shade down. I then moved on to the dark wood and applied that to all the bases to make it look nice and muddy, like a football pitch would, before the grass goes down, obviously. Before a bit of Zealot Yellow on all the fabric pieces and the helmets. So their little socks and the line between the blue bits on the helmet. Then I decided to quickly jump back to the warrior skin and use that as the tone on the footballs, because the dark wood felt just a little bit too dark for it maybe. But I'm quite happy with that. Looks like a good leather skin ball. Then I cracked out the Gravelord Grey for the under fabrics underneath the armour. Forgot to film it very well, so here's what it looked like when it was done. Shusha! And with all of these base colours down, it's really starting to come together. So from there, just a tiny little bit of shamrock green on the grass tufts. And then I can start on the broadsword silver on all the metal areas, such as the wings on the helmet, the grille, and those spiky things on their arms that remind me of Resident Evil 4. And if you played Resident Evil 4, you'll know the guy I'm talking about. You know, the one in the dungeon, and then you go into like the old castle. Anyway, no. So I drank a bit of that, and then started applying it to the models, just to darken everything down a little tiny bit, especially the broadsword silver, which comes out a little bit too bright, I reckon. And at that point, it's ready for the final stage of doing all the fine details. So using some Corex white, I brought all the colours back up on the grey fabric areas, just to really make them pop and really accent some of the highlights, make them stand out. Almost in a slightly cartoonish, larger-than-life way, but I quite like the results. And while that was drying, I got out some of the grass, laid down the PVA glue on the bases, and then sprinkled it over, flicked off the excess, gave it a little wipe around the brim, and it was really starting to take the appearance of a football pitch. Then for the next wave of details, I cracked out the Calgar Blue and started applying that to parts of the armour. and the padding, and things are really starting to pop. So then I used some Avalanche Sunset for the fabrics that were yellow, because they were looking a little bit too orange in places, so I really wanted to bring that yellowness back up. And finally, the Abaddon Black. Nice thick coat of that around the brims. Not too thick, otherwise you will see the brush strokes. And I think I'm ready to call it done. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next one. Here they are.